A lot of your research that you've done has been in how gratitude, there's a response, a give and take, and like the affirmation of the receiving of something that kind of creates this unspoken contract of, hey, like, I appreciate you doing that, and I may be interested in doing that for you in the future, to which can like build a lot of connection between two people. I guess I'm more so making a statement that I think that's sorely missing, and it's much more difficult to obtain in the digital space. But could you tell us a little bit more about how you see gratitude as a utility from the evolutionary perspective as well?
Sure. So I think you're right. I think there are missed opportunities that are online. And so I'm always encouraging my son. It's like, give your teacher a call, because he can do that with this online stuff that he's doing. I'm like, give her a call. I was like, it's going to go far. Trust me. I'm trying to like make this kid even more of a weasel and devil, and how to like work the system here. I'm like, just give her a call. Don't just text.
Oh, I was referred to in front of my entire class in undergrad as a schmoozer because I brought my teacher a coffee when I showed up late. And it was just like, hey, I'm trying to show that I'm not taking her for granted here. I appreciate what she does, and I'm sorry I was late. So, Hey, be a schmoozer. I fully support this.
You know what? Schmoozers get ahead in this world, especially, polite,
I've been doing a lot of schmoozing.
Schmoozers. So it's, networking is really important. But, gratitude. So it ends up that I left the discussed world, so put on my nice hat now. And although, believe it or not, I'll take it off. I'm really going to talk about the same kind of strategic things that disgust and morality do. And so I told you about this paper, The Banker's Paradox. That was one of my favorite papers by John Truby and Lita Cosmides that talked about how you can, the alternate avenues to altruism. And that was through identifying people who hold value and value you. And that's the paper that really got me started thinking about gratitude, because in order to get that ball rolling, so you notice someone else and so we talk about externalities and affordances. You probably talk about something similar in the business world, right? That people can have positive externalities, positive affordances in terms of the benefits that they offer, but you can also assess the costs that they might impose. So you have always kind of this trade-off between, positive versus negative externalities. And so, the example that my advisors used to give, which is dated, but I'm going to give their example. They're like Mick Jagger, everyone who like hung around Mick Jagger had so many positive affordances, right? So you just wanted to be around him because what came with Mick Jagger? Well, you got, women and drugs and booze and all this fun stuff, right? So the idea that all these positive affordances can be literally dripping off of people. And, the idea that to the extent that you can make yourself valued to those individuals, you might be the recipient of such benefits. And so I know that sounds callous, so births friendship. So here we go. So this is, the origin story of friendships. And so basically, if I show that I valued you for this thing that you did, you killed a snake next to my campsite or something, that's like, it's a positive affordance, that's pretty good. And so I value you for that. And so the idea, to the extent that I can positively reinforce that and have you identify that that's the reason why I'm trying to reinforce that type of behavior. I'm basically saying that their behavior that you just done did, I'd like you to keep doing it. I'd appreciate it very much. And so I'm basically indicating I hold that to be a value. Now, if you're just like, who are you? It was near my tent too, and so clearly you're not showing that you are looking for, you're not looking to cultivate any value from my direction, but instead you're like, oh yeah, not a problem, of course. And so the response that you get from people when you thank them for doing something, so being thanked for doing something is quite telling. It tells who is valuing me for particular actions. But then your response back to them is kind of reciprocal. And I am showing that I value you or potentially might. it's words, not actions. And so you always have to be careful with that. And so, but the idea is that gratitude, when you benefit me and deliver a benefit to me, I feel gratitude. First off, I had expected you. So gratitude, in our research, there's still some questions in there and different research is suggesting different things. But the way I think it's happening is that if you're a stranger, I expect bupkis from you. And if you do something nice to me, you have far exceeded my expectation. And that delta very much predicts the extent of my gratitude, right? And so if it's nothing, or if it's lower than I expected, and you didn't regard me as I thought you should have, that's a negative delta, and that will spark anger. But the idea that to the extent that you exceed my expectations in how you treat me, that's going to trigger gratitude and motivations to try to positively reinforce those behaviors, and with the promise of, future reciprocal and downstream benefits. And so gratitude is really critical in jumpstarting friendships. They help identify benefits and they help communicate where you feel that people are beneficial to you. And it's the different communications of it. So you're talking about social media and online. It's like, if there's just one emoji for gratitude, right? And I don't even know what that would be, like this, or like with a hat tilt. I don't even know if they have an emoji like this, like the gratitude emoji, like, tip of the hat, hand over heart kind of type of thing. And so that doesn't lack intensity, and it ends up that it's really important. It's like, I do something nice for you and you're like, thanks. And it's like, that tells me something. Or I hear nothing. Ever walk through a set of doors and hold the door for the people behind you and not a peep comes out of their mouth, and then the next bank of doors, you open it and you just let it go. It's like, fend for yourself, people. Yeah. You clearly didn't value me. Yeah, it's not good to walk behind me and not say thank you. I don't expect roses or anything, but just even a, that'll do. It'll do.
It's so interesting to think about if I'm in a coffee shop, a stranger buys me a cup of coffee, I might think like, wow, that is an amazing person. When like a friend who's close to me might buy me a cup of coffee every day and I just don't even think anything of it.
Yeah, that delta is totally different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The expectations. And it's like, listen, I still go home for the holidays and my dad's like, here's a little something. And, one year he was like late in doing it. It was like the day I was like leaving for the airport and I was like, what's up? I was thinking to myself, where's my check for the year? I've been a good daughter. I can't listen. I mean, the conversations I have with myself in my head are like, like Ally McBeal moments. And I'm just thinking, finally he gives me a check and I'm like, Deb, you better make sure to really thank him this time. I'm like, oh, Dad, thank you so much. He won't listen to this, so I'm clear. And so, but the idea that, I think that it's a lot about expectations. And so what some of the researchers are doing, and so let me just do a quick shout out to Eric Peterson at UC Boulder. So he is trying to identify more closely, I just forgot whether he's at Boulder or Colorado Springs. I'm sorry, Eric. And so I think he's at Boulder, but he's trying to really understand kind of what the mechanics are and the mental software behind gratitude. And we have debates amongst our team as to what might be really going on. But here is what's clear. The motivation, so the variables that are predicting my gratitude are different than the variables that then predict how cooperative I'm going to be down to you in the future. So even though that violation of expectations, which is where I want to place my money on this system, is, that produces the full range of gratitude kind of things. So communications, behaviors, facial expressions, and all that things that get activated in that. But it ends up that delta in how much I sense that you now value me then gets fed into a system for how much I will value you, right? So I just sense this huge, large delta, like, an uptick in how you value me. Well, that's one input into now how I will value you, that social value we were talking about before, the why give a rat's ass. And I just detected you care about me. And that should absolutely be a reason why I care about you, because among all the people out there, you have shown that you actually are going to do something nice for me. And that means something. And ancestrally, that would have meant a lot. And so that's one input that then goes into how I value you. And that's what predicts then, what I will do, how I will trade off my welfare for you. So we're trying to start to pinpoint the circuitry of gratitude with, a goal of, I think always a fun goal is, because we're trying to reverse engineer the human mental apps. You might imagine that, in a few decades, maybe we can hand over the schematics to the MIT, Imagineers or whatever, whoever's, building the robots that are donning more and more human attributes, but be like, this is what you need in order to, pull off and generate gratitude.
It would seem evolutionarily that it may be very like a strategy for self-preservation to just be gracious towards other people. Because I'm just thinking, like, if you're telling me you're gonna go out and maybe there's a limit, right? Like hey, don't be naive, because you'll get bit by the snake in that instance. But if you go out and put out, your gracious attitude towards other people, you're kind of like inviting that same thing back into your own life in a sense. Like you're offering something that you're, hoping, and without expectation, hopefully, because again, like you said, anger can come out of that as well. But I think there's like a piece there of that good karma, but like the practicality behind karma of like, yeah, if you go out into the world, you do a bunch of good stuff, like you're going to see good stuff. You know what I mean? And it's just going to develop your psychology in a more positive way than not being gracious, pushing everybody away. Like that isolation feeling of that would be not what you would want from an evolutionary standpoint.
No, I think that's a super good point. I mean, look, you have the best chance of having the universe send back good things to you if you're doing good things, right? Or you've got to be really scary and formidable, or have like a lot of money. And so, but the idea that, people oftentimes, I mean, I like to consider it like you're going fishing, you're just casting out a whole bunch of lines, and there's a difference between, indebtedness. And so it ends up so what we're talking about is not reciprocal altruism, because if I do something nice for you, because I'm fishing for friends, like I do something nice, I'd be like, hey, you want my last piece of gum? Like you say to a stranger, hey, you're on the plane, would you like a piece of gum or something like that? And so, it's just like, you're doing a nice thing. If they take it and don't do anything back, you haven't been cheated, right? There's no being cheated in that exchange. There was no exchange. But rather, what it is you are taking a risk. You are putting out a benefit and kind of casting out a line to see whether or not that individual might be a recipient and might be willing to, value you for having done so. And so in modern times on a plane, you might be like, I'm not looking to make a friend on a plane. That's fine. But in ancestral times where all of these systems and circuitry evolved and what they're sensitive to, doing something nice for someone and having someone value you could have meant the difference between life and death. And so, we don't play with live ammo in modern worlds. And so we can just kind of, enjoy our suite of mental adaptations and, play around with them. Ancestrally, they would have, again, life, hung in the balance. But the idea that even gratitude is so that's why I took off my hat and threw it on the ground, because it's, it's a strategic emotion. It is basically saying, who is providing benefits in this current world? Who is, the most, who do I think I could possibly get close enough to do something that might be of value to, and let me try and aim really high, or I'm gonna aim really low. And so different people are different ways. And, what is the makeup of the person that you're talking about? Like, what are your particular preferences, and who might share those preferences with you? Because that kind of commonality is one way in to kind of generate this sense of similarity and so forth. that might help cultivate these types of relationships. Because if you're similar and you enjoy certain things, then I can value you for enjoying and transforming the world in the same way I would. So it ends up that gratitude is very much looking to exploit the benefits that other people offer by positively reinforcing it when necessary and negatively reinforcing it when people don't value you, right? So you should be treating me better. I mean, there are people who walk around angry all the time, right? With a big old chip on their shoulder. No one treats me how I should be treated. I deserve better than this. It's just like, they're there.
You're so like, ungrateful.
Another 20 years, that'll smooth out those rough edges. And so, but the idea that, people sometimes when they're expecting so much, they're walking around angry that it's not being delivered all of the time. And so it's in the same way that people are trying to negatively reinforce what they perceive as the imposition of costs to change people's behaviors into increasing how they value them and delivering greater benefits. And so both gratitude and anger are working in very interesting ways in order to improve the treatment that improve the regard others hold for us.
Go ahead. Do you have a thought?
Briefly. I just think this is so fascinating because I think I've only really thought about gratitude in the context of being very personal to me. Like I need to be grateful for this, and that's going to improve my health, my happiness, and who I feel like I am. And I didn't think too much about the reciprocity piece of it. And it just seems like, man, when there's somebody who I provide a service for who really thanks me for it, it's like, God, I want to do 100 times better next time I do this for them. It's just, it's so net positive when it's framed in that way. So it's really cool.
Gratitude is one of my favorite emotions. And when researchers talked about the universal emotions, they never used to talk about gratitude. And so this is absolutely one that I think is critical to why humans are the way they are. I mean, we are, I'm one of them. And so, but I think that it's important. It's really important in cultivating these important relationships, but it also means that it has a lot of interesting byproducts, right? So when you're in a funk, and a lot of these self-help groups and, weight loss, it's like, if you can put yourself in a mental space that's more positive, you can kind of jumpstart the car in a way, right? So if we know more about this circuitry, what we can do is, realize how valuable we are and how valued and, valuable life is, and kind of focus on that heightened sense of value and worth that I think can generate this gratitude. Very much so. I mean, when you look out at the world, I think that and you're like, I'm really grateful to be here. You're pretty much thinking it could be so much worse. And I'm grateful. It's like, so like, look at this, it's not as bad as it could be. And I think that we can definitely use it. I mean, as a clinical intervention, it is something that I think has shown to be quite effective, certainly temporarily. So if ever you're in a funk, trying to focus on like one or two things that you're just really grateful for and just really focusing in on it, I think can be quite helpful.